Even as she slept, 2 men would stand outside her bedroom door and another 2 under her window. She was the richest little girl in the world, and she was the most protected. The waiter slid the tumbler onto the tray and covered it with a crisp white cloth so that the crystal wouldn't be desecrated by wind-blown sand. He was sweating, and he had to resist the urge to wipe his forehead with the sleeve of his jacket. He kept a wary eye on the old man. It was almost noon, and he would soon be wanting his first glass of ouzo of the day. The little girl ran back to the sea, hopping across the hot sand until she reached the cooler fringes of the water's edge. She squatted down and splayed her hands, palms uppermost, releasing the crustacean she'd so proudly shown the old couple. It was a small crab, and it scuttled sideways, seeking sanctuary in the wet sand. Within seconds, it had burrowed to safety, and the little girl waved goodbye. Far out to sea, a powerful speedboat ploughed through the waves. One of the bodyguards put a pair of binoculars to his eyes and studied it for several minutes. He spoke to the other men in Yiddish. They were Israelis, as were all the child's protectors. It had nothing to do with religion, the waiter knew. It was simply that Israeli-trained bodyguards were the best in the world. If necessary, they would die to protect their charge. The old man looked towards the waiter and nodded. The waiter took the ice bucket and the bottle of ouzo out of the gas-powered refrigerator and placed them on the tray. He held it with both gloved hands as he walked gingerly across the burning sand, hot even through his leather-soled shoes. As soon as he stepped out of the shade of the massive umbrella above the bar, he felt the sun beat down on his hair, and a rivulet of sweat ran down his neck. The 3 bodyguards were now all standing 50 feet or so behind the little girl, looking over her head at the speedboat which was arcing through the waves, away from the beach. There was more Yiddish, and shrugs. The ice cubes rattled wetly in the ice bucket, and the waiter took extra care when he put his feet on the shifting sand. The old man had bent his head close to the old woman, listening intently. She was probably warning him about drinking too much, the waiter thought, and he smiled to himself. The bodyguards were to the waiter's side, still staring out to sea. He took his right hand off the tray and dropped the ice bucket lid onto the sand before grabbing for the silenced automatic. The metal had been chilled by the ice, and he was aware of how pleasant it felt through his cotton gloves as he leveled the gun between the shoulder blades of the nearest bodyguard and fired twice. The man dropped to the sand as the waiter fired 2 more shots into the back of the middle bodyguard. The gun made no more sound than a child's cough, and the 3rd bodyguard had only begun to turn when the waiter put 2 of the mercury-tipped slugs into his back. Out of the corner of his eye, the waiter saw the old couple struggling to their feet, but he knew there was nothing they could do. They were too old, too feeble, to do anything but watch. The waiter stepped over the legs of one of the dead bodyguards, the gun now warm to the touch. The child was kneeling in the sand, trying to find the crab. She looked up at him as he approached, smiling, because there were only friends on the island, friends and protectors. She frowned when she saw the gun in his hand. The waiter smiled down at her. "Are you frightened?" he asked softly. She looked up at him and smiled again, hopefully. "No," she said. "I'm not." The waiter nodded and shot her in the head, then in the chest. Behind him, he heard a mournful wail, more of a howl than a scream. He couldn't tell if it was the old man or the woman. In the distance, the speedboat headed in the direction of the shore, its twin engines roaring. The waiter ran towards it as the blood of the